Ramadi, Iraq, 2006. The most dangerous city on Earth. Urban combat so intense that every street corner could be your last. Improvised explosive devices everywhere. Enemy fighters hidden in every building. Chaos. Confusion. Death waiting around every corner. This is where Jocko Willink and Leif Babin commanded SEAL Task Unit Bruiser, leading American and Iraqi forces through the deadliest urban warfare since Fallujah. In this crucible of violence, they learned leadership lessons you can't find in business schools or management books. When bullets are flying and lives are on the line, leadership theory means nothing. What works survives. What doesn't gets people killed. The principles they forged in Ramadi aren't abstract concepts. They're battlefield-tested truths that determine who lives and who dies. Welcome to Extreme Ownership, where you'll discover the exact leadership principles Navy SEALs use to win in the most hostile environments on Earth, and how these same principles will transform your business, your team, and your life. This isn't soft corporate leadership. This is hard truth from men who led warriors in combat. And if it works when lives are at stake, it'll work when profits are at stake. Let's start with a mission that changed everything. A SEAL operation in Ramadi went catastrophically wrong. Multiple Iraqi soldiers wounded. An American was shot. Friendly fire. Complete chaos. Buildings were demolished. The entire operation was a disaster from start to finish. When the shooting stopped and the dust cleared, someone had to answer for what happened. Someone had to take responsibility. That someone was Jocko Willink, the SEAL Task Unit commander. Even though he wasn't on the ground when the shooting started. Even though other leaders made tactical errors. Even though the chaos was contributed to by multiple failures across the chain of command. None of that mattered. Jocko stood before his commanding officer and the investigation board and said 6 words that define extreme ownership. There is no one to blame but me. Not his subordinate leaders. Not the Iraqi soldiers. Not the circumstances. Not the fog of war. He was the commander. It happened on his watch. Therefore, it was his responsibility. Period. This is extreme ownership. The fundamental principle that separates elite leaders from everyone else. When you're the leader, everything is your responsibility. Everything. Most leaders do the opposite. When things go well, they take credit. When things go wrong, they blame others. Blame the team. Blame circumstances. Blame anything except themselves. This blame mentality destroys teams, erodes trust, and guarantees mediocrity. Elite leaders flip this completely. When things go well, they give credit to the team. When things go wrong, they take full responsibility themselves. Why does this work? Because teams follow leaders who take ownership, not leaders who make excuses. When a leader blames others, the team loses respect and trust. When a leader takes responsibility, the team respects that leader and works harder. More importantly, when leaders take extreme ownership, they gain the power to fix problems. If it's someone else's fault, you're powerless. If it's your fault, you can change it. In this audiobook, you'll learn the complete extreme ownership framework forged in the Battle of Ramadi and proven in thousands of businesses afterward. You'll discover why there are no bad teams, only bad leaders. You'll learn how to make your team believe in the mission. You'll understand why ego is the enemy of good leadership. You'll master cover and move, the teamwork principle that wins battles and businesses. You'll learn why simple plans win and complex plans fail. You'll develop the ability to prioritize and execute under extreme pressure. And you'll understand decentralized command, how to empower your team to lead without you. But understand this: extreme ownership isn't comfortable. It requires you to take responsibility for things that aren't directly your fault. It demands you look in the mirror instead of pointing fingers. It forces you to lead when it's easier to follow. It's hard. It's uncomfortable. And it absolutely works. Here's what separates SEAL leaders from corporate managers. Accountability. In combat, Failed leadership gets people killed. That accountability creates excellence. In business, failed leadership gets people a talking to and maybe eventually fired. That lack of accountability creates mediocrity. But when business leaders adopt SEAL-level accountability, taking extreme ownership of everything in their world, businesses transform from mediocre to excellent. The principles you're about to learn were written in the streets of Ramadi with American and Iraqi blood. They were refined through hundreds of combat operations. They were tested in the ultimate laboratory, life and death situations where failure means casualties. And then they were translated to business through Echelon Front, where Jocko and Leif have trained thousands of companies, from small startups to Fortune 500 giants. These principles work in war. They work in business. They work in relationships. They work in every domain where leadership matters. Because leadership is leadership. The fundamentals don't change whether you're leading SEALs through Ramadi or leading a sales team through quarterly goals. The principles are the same. The stakes might differ, but excellence requires the same mindset. Before we dive deep, understand that extreme ownership is not about being harsh or authoritarian. It's about taking responsibility. It's not about micromanaging. It's about empowering your team. It's not about perfection. It's about accountability. Elite SEAL leaders create cultures where everyone takes ownership because the leader models it first. Your transformation begins now. Not when conditions are perfect. Not when your team is better. Not when you have more resources. No. Because extreme ownership starts with you, regardless of your circumstances. Stop making excuses. Stop blaming others. Stop waiting for someone else to fix your problems. Take ownership of everything in your world. Let's begin. Understand Chapter 1. The fundamental principle. Extreme ownership is simple but not easy. The concept. As a leader, you are responsible for everything your team does or fails to do. Not just the things directly under your control. Everything. If your subordinate leader makes a mistake, that's your responsibility for not training them better. If a team member underperforms, that's your responsibility for not setting clearer expectations or providing better support. If the mission fails because of factors outside your direct control, that's still your responsibility for not anticipating and mitigating those factors. This seems unfair. How can you be responsible for things other people do? How can you own outcomes influenced by circumstances beyond your control? The answer is simple. Because you're the leader. Leadership means taking responsibility for the team's performance, period. No asterisks. No exceptions. No excuses. Let's explore why this mindset is so powerful. When you take extreme ownership, several things happen immediately. First, you stop wasting energy on blame. Blame is easy but useless. It feels good temporarily to point at someone else, but it doesn't fix the problem. When you take ownership, you skip the blame phase and go straight to solution mode. How do I prevent this from happening again? What do I need to change? This solutions focus creates momentum. Second, you gain your team's respect. Teams know when leaders make excuses. They see through finger-pointing instantly. When a leader takes ownership, even for things that weren't directly their fault, the team respects that integrity. They think, if my leader takes responsibility when it's not even their fault, I should definitely take responsibility for things that are my fault. Extreme ownership by the leader cascades down to the team. Third, you empower yourself to make changes. If the problem is someone else's fault, you're powerless to fix it. You have to wait for them to change or convince them to do something different. But when you take ownership, you ask, what can I do differently? How can I lead better? What systems can I implement? These questions give you agency. You're no longer a victim of circumstances. You're the master of them. Let me share how Jocko applied this after the friendly fire incident. After taking ownership in front of his commanders, he didn't stop there. He analyzed everything that went wrong. The direct cause was a breakdown in communication and identification protocols. But the root cause? Jocko identified his failures. He hadn't ensured the Iraqi soldiers understood the importance of positive identification before engaging. He hadn't confirmed that all leaders on the ground understood the complete operational plan. He hadn't built in enough redundancy in communication systems. Most leaders would have blamed the Iraqi soldiers who shot first, or the subordinate SEAL leader who made a tactical error, or the fog of war that creates inevitable confusion. Jocko blamed none of them. He asked, "What could I have done to prevent this?" The answer gave him a list of improvements to implement. Better pre-mission briefings with Iraqi forces. More detailed communication plans. Stricter identification protocols. Multiple confirmation requirements before engaging. By taking ownership, he turned catastrophe into improvement. The task unit implemented new procedures that prevented similar incidents. They became more effective, not despite the failure, but because of how they responded to it. That's the power of extreme ownership. Failure plus ownership equals learning and improvement. Failure plus blame equals repetition and stagnation. Now let's discuss how to implement extreme ownership practically. Step 1. When something goes wrong, your first thought must be, what could I have done differently? Not who screwed up. Your second thought, how do I prevent this from happening again? Not how do I punish the person responsible. This mental discipline is hard at first but becomes automatic with practice. Step 2. Publicly take ownership. When your team fails, stand up and tell your leaders, peers, and team, "This is on me." Don't mention others' contributions to the failure. Just own it completely. This public ownership does two things. It protects your team from external criticism, building their loyalty, and it sets the standard that leaders take responsibility. Step 3. Privately analyze contributing factors with your team. After taking public ownership, work with your team to understand what happened. Not to assign blame, but to learn. We failed because I didn't prepare us adequately. Let's identify specifically where we fell short so I can lead better next time. Notice the framing. You're still owning it, but you're enlisting the team in solutions. Step 4. Implement improvements. Ownership without action is just words. After identifying what went wrong and your role in it, make concrete changes. New processes, better training, clearer communication, whatever is needed. This shows your team that ownership leads to improvement, not just empty apologies. Step 5. Empower your team to take ownership too. As you model extreme ownership, encourage your team to adopt it. When team members make excuses or blame others, gently redirect, "I appreciate you identifying external factors, but what could you have done differently?" This coaches them toward ownership thinking. Here's a critical distinction. Extreme ownership doesn't mean accepting blame for things you didn't do or micromanaging to prevent every possible failure. It means taking responsibility for the outcomes and asking how you can lead better. If someone on your team repeatedly underperforms despite your support and coaching, taking ownership might mean making the hard decision to move them to a different role or off the team entirely. That's still ownership. You're owning the team's composition and performance. Let me share a business example. A company CEO's product launch failed catastrophically. Product didn't work as advertised. Customers were furious. The engineering team had clearly shipped something unfinished. The CEO could have blamed engineering. Instead, he took extreme ownership publicly. "This failure is my responsibility. I set unrealistic timelines that pressured the team. I didn't ensure adequate testing phases. I didn't verify readiness before launch." Privately, he worked with engineering to understand what went wrong technically. But publicly, he owned it. The result? The engineering team respected him immensely. They worked overtime willingly to fix the product because their leader had protected them publicly while working with them privately. Customers respected the CEO's honesty and gave the company another chance. The fixed product launched successfully. The CEO's extreme ownership turned failure into eventual success and created fierce team loyalty. Contrast this with leaders who throw their teams under the bus when things go wrong. My team didn't execute. The sales department failed to deliver. My people just don't care enough. These statements might be factually accurate, but they destroy leadership. The team hears, "My leader will sacrifice me to save themselves." Trust evaporates. Effort decreases. The team stops caring because the leader demonstrated they don't have the team's back. As we close this chapter, commit to extreme ownership starting today. The next time something goes wrong in your domain, take ownership publicly and completely. Don't mention contributing factors from others. Just own it. Then privately analyze and improve. This single practice will transform your leadership more than any other skill. Now let's explore the corollary principle. There are no bad teams, only bad leaders. Chapter 2. No bad teams, only bad leaders in SEAL training. There's an exercise called boat crew races. Teams of 6 to 7 trainees carry heavy rubber boats on their heads while running on the beach or through the ocean. They race each other repeatedly. One crew consistently finishes last. Dead last. Every single race. The crew is physically capable. They're not significantly weaker than other crews. Yet they keep losing. The SEAL instructors decide to run an experiment. They take the leader of the worst-performing boat crew and swap him with the leader of the best-performing crew. Just the leaders. Everything else stays the same. Next race. The previously worst crew, now with new leadership, finishes first. The previously best crew, now with the old worst leader, finishes last. This experiment proves a fundamental truth. There are no bad teams, only bad leaders. The team's performance is a direct reflection of leadership quality. When a team consistently underperforms, the problem isn't the team. It's the leader. This is hard to accept because it's far easier to blame team members than to look in the mirror. But it's true. Let's explore why teams fail when leaders fail. First, unclear standards. Bad leaders don't set clear performance expectations. The team doesn't know what good looks like. They drift, doing what they think is acceptable, which is usually mediocre. Good leaders set crystal clear standards and hold everyone, including themselves, accountable. Second, lack of belief. Bad leaders don't make the team believe in the mission. If the team doesn't understand why they're doing something or doesn't believe it matters, effort will be minimal. Good leaders ensure every team member understands the mission's importance and their role in it. Third, poor training and preparation. Bad leaders don't invest time in training the team. They throw people into tasks without proper preparation, then blame them for failing. Good leaders train relentlessly, ensuring the team has the skills and knowledge to succeed. Fourth, absence of accountability. Bad leaders don't hold team members accountable for their performance. Low performers coast. High performers get frustrated seeing others slack without consequences. Standards slip. Good leaders hold everyone accountable consistently. Fifth, lack of trust. Bad leaders micromanage or don't support their team, creating environments where trust doesn't exist. Without trust, teams can't function at high levels. Good leaders build trust by taking ownership, supporting the team, and empowering them to make decisions. Now let's examine the boat crew races more closely. What did the new leader do differently? He immediately set higher standards and communicated them clearly. He organized the crew's effort, assigning specific roles. He motivated through purpose, explaining why winning mattered. He held individuals accountable for their part. He trained the crew on technique. Within one race, the same team that had been consistently last was suddenly first. The team didn't change. Their physical capabilities were identical. But their performance transformed completely because leadership transformed. This is the power of good leadership. And it proves that when you're leading a team that's underperforming, the solution isn't replacing team members. It's improving your leadership. Let me share how Jocko applied this principle in Ramadi. Early in their deployment, one of the SEAL platoons under his command was struggling. Missions weren't going smoothly. Small mistakes were adding up. The platoon's performance was below the task unit's standard. Jocko could have blamed the platoon. Instead, he asked, "How am I failing as a task unit commander to support this platoon?" He identified several leadership failures on his part. He hadn't clearly communicated his performance standards to that platoon leader. He hadn't provided enough oversight and mentorship. He hadn't ensured they had adequate resources. He hadn't integrated them fully into the task unit's culture. These were his failures, not theirs. Jocko took ownership and made changes. He spent more time with that platoon leader, mentoring and guiding. He clarified expectations. He provided more support. He integrated them better with the rest of the task unit. The platoon's performance improved dramatically. Same guys. Better leadership from above. Better results. Here's how to apply no bad teams, only bad leaders in your situation. When your team underperforms, resist the urge to blame them. Instead, ask these questions. Have I set clear standards? Does my team know exactly what good performance looks like? Have I made them believe in the mission? Do they understand why what we're doing matters? Have I trained them adequately? Did I give them the skills and knowledge needed to succeed? Am I holding everyone accountable? Are consequences consistent and fair? Have I built trust? Does my team know I have their back? If the honest answer to any of these questions is no, you've identified your leadership gap. Fix that gap before blaming the team. Almost always, when you fix your leadership, team performance improves. But let's address the hard question. What if you truly have underperforming individuals who can't or won't meet standards despite your good leadership? Then your leadership responsibility is to make the tough call. Move them to a role where they can succeed, or move them off the team. That's still leadership. You're owning the team's composition and performance. However, if you're constantly cycling through team members, all of whom just aren't good enough, the problem isn't them. It's you. Good leaders make average people perform above average. Great leaders make average people perform at exceptional levels. If everyone who works for you underperforms, look in the mirror. Here's a business example. A startup had a sales team that consistently missed targets. The CEO blamed the salespeople. They're not hungry enough. They don't care. He cycled through team members. Performance stayed terrible. Then a new VP of sales took over. Same salespeople the CEO had blamed. The VP implemented clear sales processes, provided comprehensive training, set specific daily and weekly activity standards, gave individualized coaching, and held people accountable with regular reviews. Sales doubled within 3 months. Same team. Different leadership. The CEO's assumption that the problem was the team was wrong. The problem was leadership. When leadership improved, team performance improved. As we close this chapter, internalize this truth. Your team's performance is your report card as a leader. If they're consistently failing, you're failing as a leader. Stop blaming them. Start leading better. Set clear standards. Make them believe. Train them thoroughly. Hold them accountable. Build trust. Do these things and watch average teams produce extraordinary results. Now let's explore the foundation that makes all of this possible. Belief. Chapter 3. Believe. The foundation of success in Ramadi. SEAL Task Unit Bruiser received a mission order that made no sense. They were told to work with Iraqi soldiers to secure and hold buildings in the most dangerous part of the city. The SEALs would be massively outnumbered. The Iraqi soldiers were poorly trained and unreliable. The enemy controlled the entire area. Success seemed impossible. Worse, the strategic purpose wasn't clear. Why risk American and Iraqi lives for buildings in a bombed-out city? Jocko had two choices. Execute the mission without belief and watch his team go through the motions half-heartedly, likely resulting in failure and casualties. Or refuse to execute until he understood the mission well enough to believe in it and make his team believe. He chose the second option. He went up the chain of command, asking questions until he understood the strategic vision. Here's what he learned. Those specific buildings were key to controlling that sector of Ramadi. Controlling that sector would allow coalition forces to isolate enemy fighters and cut their supply lines. This would lead to pacifying the entire city, saving countless American and Iraqi lives in the long run. Suddenly, the mission made sense. It wasn't about buildings. It was about saving lives through strategic control. Armed with this understanding, Jocko made his team believe. He explained the strategic purpose. He showed them how their dangerous mission fit into the larger victory. He made them understand that risking their lives for those buildings would ultimately save more lives. The team bought in. They believed. And they executed the mission successfully, despite enormous danger and difficulty. This illustrates the critical principle. In order to lead, you must believe. You can't make a team fully commit to a mission you don't believe in yourself. They'll sense your doubt. They'll see through your false enthusiasm. And their commitment will be superficial at best. But when you genuinely believe, when you understand the purpose and importance of the mission, your conviction becomes contagious. The team catches your belief and commits fully. Now let's explore how to develop and transmit belief. First, you must understand the mission's purpose deeply. Don't just accept orders or directives at face value. Ask why. Why are we doing this? What's the strategic objective? How does this contribute to overall success? If you're a leader in a company and your CEO announces a new initiative that doesn't make sense, don't just implement it blindly. Ask questions until you understand the reasoning. Sometimes, after asking why, you'll realize the mission actually doesn't make sense. The strategic reasoning is flawed. In that case, your leadership responsibility is to push back up the chain of command. Explain your concerns. Offer alternatives. This isn't insubordination. It's leadership. You're ensuring the team doesn't execute a fundamentally flawed plan. But often, once you ask enough questions and understand the full context, the mission makes sense. You just didn't see the bigger picture initially. Once you understand it, you can believe in it genuinely. Then you can make your team believe. Second, translate strategic purpose into terms your team understands and cares about. Senior leaders think strategically. Frontline team members think tactically and personally. Your job as a leader is to bridge that gap. Show your team how the strategic mission affects them and the things they care about. For example, if your company is implementing new software that will require your team to learn new systems and change workflows, they might resist. They don't see the strategic benefit, only the personal hassle. Your job is to translate, "I know this change is difficult and will require extra work up front. Here's why it matters. This software will automate the tedious tasks you all hate doing. It'll free up hours every week that you can spend on more interesting work. It'll also make our department more efficient, which improves our standing in the company and makes your jobs more secure. Long term, this investment in learning new systems makes you more valuable professionally." Now the team understands not just what they're being asked to do, but why it benefits them. They can believe because they see personal value, not just corporate strategy. Third, address doubts and concerns honestly. Teams have legitimate questions and worries about new missions or initiatives. Bad leaders ignore these concerns or dismiss them. Good leaders address them directly. "I know you're worried about X. Here's how we're addressing that concern. I know you doubt whether why will work. Let me show you why I believe it will. Acknowledging concerns doesn't undermine belief. It strengthens it. Your team knows their concerns are real. When you pretend those concerns don't exist, they think you're out of touch. When you address concerns head-on, they think you understand reality and have thought things through. That builds belief. Fourth, demonstrate your own belief through commitment. Actions speak louder than words. If you tell your team the mission is critical but you're not personally invested in it, they'll know you don't really believe. If you're the first one working on it and the last one to leave, your commitment demonstrates belief. Lead from the front on missions you're asking your team to believe in. Here's a business example. A company needed to pivot their entire product strategy. This required engineers to scrap months of work and start over on a completely different architecture. The engineering team was devastated and resistant. The CTO could have just ordered them to do it. Instead, he made them believe. He explained the market research showing their current product wouldn't succeed, while the new direction had genuine demand. He showed them competitor movements that validated the pivot. He addressed their concern about wasted work. I know it feels like months wasted, but you learned invaluable lessons about what doesn't work. That knowledge will make the new product better. Nothing is wasted if you learn from it. Then he demonstrated his belief by working alongside them, coding and designing the new architecture himself despite his leadership role. His commitment was visible. The team saw he believed. They began to believe. 6 months later, the new product launched successfully. The pivot that seemed like disaster became triumph because the leader made the team believe. But what if you genuinely can't make yourself believe in a mission? You've asked questions, sought understanding, and still think the mission is wrong or pointless. Then you have two ethical options. Convince your leaders to change the mission, or step aside. What you can't do ethically is pretend to believe while executing half-heartedly. That's dishonest leadership that wastes your team's effort. If you've tried to convince your leaders and they won't change direction, and you still can't believe, resign from leading that mission. Say, I've tried to understand this and I can't get behind it. For the team's sake, someone who believes should lead this. That's integrity. It's rare, but it's right. However, most of the time, when leaders think they can't believe in a mission, they just haven't sought understanding deeply enough. They've accepted surface-level explanations. When you dig deeper, when you understand the strategic level and the purpose, belief usually becomes possible. As we close this chapter, commit to leading with belief. Before you ask your team to commit to anything, make sure you understand it well enough to genuinely believe in it. Ask questions up the chain of command until you get that understanding. Then translate that strategic purpose into terms your team understands and cares about. Address their concerns honestly. Demonstrate your commitment visibly. When you lead with genuine belief, your team will follow with genuine commitment. Now let's explore what kills belief and leadership faster than anything else. Ego. Chapter 4. Check the ego destroys leaders and teams. Not confidence. Not self-belief. Ego. There's a critical difference. Confidence is believing in your ability to lead and execute. That's essential. Ego is believing you're more important than the mission or the team. That's toxic. The best leaders are confident but egoless. They believe in their abilities while remaining humble, open to feedback, and willing to admit mistakes. In Ramadi, Jocko saw ego destroy leaders. New SEAL officers would arrive, fresh from training, convinced they knew best. Their ego prevented them from listening to experienced enlisted SEALs who'd been in combat for months. They made decisions based on proving themselves rather than mission success. They couldn't admit mistakes because ego equated mistakes with weakness. The result? Poor decisions, team resentment, and dangerous situations. Conversely, The best SEAL leaders Jocko observed had strong confidence but checked their ego. They listened to everyone, regardless of rank. They admitted mistakes immediately. They put mission success above personal glory. They deflected credit to the team and absorbed blame themselves. These leaders earned fierce loyalty and achieved exceptional results. Let's explore how ego manifests and destroys leadership. First, ego makes you defensive about feedback. When someone suggests you made a mistake or could improve, ego interprets this as an attack. You become defensive, dismissive, or angry. This shuts down communication. Your team learns not to give you feedback because you react poorly. You stop learning and improving because you can't hear criticism. Second, ego makes you ignore input from others. You think because you're the leader, your ideas are automatically best. You don't seriously consider suggestions from subordinates or peers. This is idiotic. Good ideas come from anywhere. The person closest to a problem often has the best solution. When ego prevents you from listening, you miss valuable input and make worse decisions. Third, ego prevents you from admitting mistakes. You made a bad call. Ego says, "I can't admit that. It'll make me look weak." So you double down on the mistake, making it worse. Or you try to hide it or blame someone else. Meanwhile, everyone knows you screwed up. Your refusal to admit it destroys your credibility far more than the mistake itself would have. Fourth, ego makes you compete with your team instead of supporting them. When a team member has a great idea or performs exceptionally, ego feels threatened. You worry they're making you look bad. So you subtly undermine them or don't give them credit. This is catastrophic leadership. Your job is to make your team better, not to ensure you're always the star. Fifth, ego makes you prioritize personal glory over mission success. You make decisions based on what makes you look good rather than what's best for the team and mission. You take unnecessary risks to seem bold. You hoard credit. You position yourself for promotion even when it's not best for the team. This self-serving leadership breeds cynicism and destroys team cohesion. Now let's discuss how to check your ego. First, actively seek feedback and criticism. Don't just tolerate it. Seek it out. Ask your team, "What could I do better? Where did I fail you? How can I improve?" When they give feedback, don't defend or explain. Just listen, thank them, and implement improvements. This practice is uncomfortable but essential. It signals that you value truth over ego protection. Second, give credit generously and take blame completely. When things go well, publicly credit your team. Be specific. Sarah's idea made this work. Tom's persistence saved the project. The team executed brilliantly. When things go wrong, take ownership publicly and don't mention others' contributions to the failure. This practice requires checking ego constantly because ego wants credit for success and wants to deflect blame for failure. Third, listen more than you talk, especially in meetings and planning sessions. Ego loves to hear itself talk, to demonstrate knowledge and assert dominance. Discipline yourself to listen first. Ask questions. Draw out others' ideas. Speak last, after hearing all input. This ensures you actually consider others' perspectives instead of just waiting for your turn to talk. Fourth, admit mistakes immediately and completely. The moment you realize you made a bad call, admit it. "I was wrong about X. Here's what we're doing instead." No qualifications. "No, but I was working with bad information." Excuses. Just own it and move forward. Your team will respect this immensely. Nobody expects perfection. Everyone respects integrity. Fifth, actively develop and promote your subordinates, even when it might make you look less essential. Bad leaders keep their team members down because they worry about being replaced. Good leaders actively train their replacements and promote team members who are ready. This serves the organization and demonstrates confidence without ego. Let me share how Jocko checked his ego in a crucial moment. During planning for a complex operation, one of his subordinate leaders suggested an approach different from what Jocko had envisioned. Jocko's initial reaction was resistance. He'd already thought through the operation and developed a plan. Ego said, "I'm the commander. My plan is better." But Jocko checked that ego. He listened fully to the subordinate's suggestion. He asked clarifying questions. He genuinely considered the merits. And he realized the subordinate's plan was actually better. It had advantages Jocko's plan didn't. So Jocko adopted it, giving full credit to the subordinate leader. In the debrief after the successful operation, Jocko publicly credited that leader's plan for the success. This did several things. It showed the team that Jocko valued good ideas over personal credit. It empowered subordinate leaders to contribute ideas confidently. It made the operation more successful by using the best plan available, regardless of who came up with it. And paradoxically, it made Jocko a more respected leader because his team saw he had the humility to recognize better ideas and the confidence to adopt them. Here's a business example. A CEO had built a company from nothing to 50 million in revenue. His ego was substantial, understandably. He'd been right about countless decisions that made the company successful. But at 50 million, growth stalled. His executive team suggested the problem was centralized decision-making. The CEO was still making every significant decision, which worked when the company was small but created bottlenecks at scale. The team recommended decentralizing authority, letting department heads make more decisions without CEO approval. Ego told the CEO, "They're wrong. I built this company. My decisions are why we succeeded. Giving up control will lead to mistakes." But he checked his ego. He considered the feedback honestly. He realized they were right. His need to control everything was limiting growth. He implemented decentralized decision-making, which required massive ego checking. He had to let other people make decisions he would have made differently, and not interfere unless those decisions were truly catastrophic. He had to give credit when those decisions worked. He had to resist saying, "I told you so," when some decisions failed. Within a year, the company broke through the plateau and grew to 80 million. The CEO's willingness to check his ego unlocked growth. But checking ego doesn't mean eliminating confidence or becoming weak. You still make tough calls. You still hold people accountable. You still lead decisively. You just do it without ego. You listen first. You admit mistakes quickly. You credit others generously. You prioritize mission over personal glory. This combination of confidence without ego is the mark of elite leadership. As we close this chapter, reflect on where ego undermines your leadership. Are you defensive about feedback? Do you fail to listen to others? Do you struggle to admit mistakes? Do you compete with your team? Do you prioritize looking good over doing good? Identify your ego traps and commit to checking them. Leadership requires confidence. But ego is the enemy. Check it relentlessly. Now let's explore the teamwork principle that wins battles. Cover and move. Understand Chapter 5. Cover and move. The teamwork law cover and move is the most fundamental tactic in SEAL combat operations. One element provides covering fire while another element maneuvers. The element that just moved then provides cover while the first element moves. This continuous coordinated movement allows the team to advance on the enemy while minimizing exposure. If one element moves without the other providing cover, they get shot. If both elements try to move simultaneously, nobody has cover. The tactic only works through perfect coordination. This combat tactic is also the fundamental principle of teamwork in any domain. Teams win when different elements support each other. Teams fail when elements don't coordinate or when elements compete with each other instead of supporting each other. In business, cover and move means departments support each other's goals, not just their own. It means team members help each other succeed, not just pursue individual glory. Let's explore how cover and move manifests in organizations. In a company, different departments must work together toward the company's overall success. Sales, marketing, product, engineering, customer service, these aren't independent entities. They're elements of one team. When they coordinate and support each other, the company advances. When they don't, the company stalls. Here's what cover and move looks like practically. Sales makes promises to customers. Product and engineering must deliver on those promises. That's sales advancing while product/engineering provides cover. Product releases new features. Marketing and sales must communicate those features to the market and customers. That's product advancing while marketing/sales provides cover. Customer service identifies product problems from customer feedback. Engineering must fix those problems. That's customer service providing intelligence while engineering provides solutions. When these functions support each other, viewing each other's success as essential to overall success, the company thrives. But what usually happens instead? Departments become siloed and tribal. Sales blames product for not building what customers want. Product blames sales for making unrealistic promises. Engineering blames everyone for not understanding technical constraints. Customer service feels ignored by product. Marketing operates in isolation from sales. This departmental warfare is the opposite of cover and move. It's every element acting independently, not supporting others, sometimes even actively undermining others. The result is organizational failure. When internal competition replaces internal cooperation, external competitors win. In Ramadi, Jocko saw cover and move succeed and fail. When SEAL platoons coordinated perfectly, supporting each other's movements and objectives, operations succeeded with minimal risk. When platoons failed to coordinate, operating independently without supporting each other, operations became dangerous and ineffective. One operation required 2 platoons to clear buildings in adjacent blocks. The plan required constant communication and coordination. Platoon A would clear their buildings while Platoon B provided overwatch and security. Then they'd reverse roles. But during execution, Platoon A got wrapped up in their own operation and stopped communicating with Platoon B. Platoon B, not knowing Platoon A's status, made movements that temporarily left gaps in security. Fortunately, no one got hurt, but it could have been catastrophic. After the operation, Jocko identified the breakdown. Platoon A stopped thinking about Platoon B. They focused entirely on their own objective and forgot they were part of a larger team. In the debrief, Jocko emphasized, "You're not just responsible for your platoon's success. You're responsible for the task unit's success." That means ensuring other platoons have what they need, communicating constantly, and subordinating your individual objectives to team objectives when necessary. Here's how to implement cover and move in your organization. First, leaders must break down silos and tribal thinking. When department heads view their department's success as separate from or more important than overall company success, cover and move is impossible. The CEO or senior leader must make crystal clear, "We're one team with one mission." Departmental success means nothing if the company fails. Second, create forcing mechanisms for coordination. Don't just tell departments to work together. Build it into processes. Regular cross-functional meetings where departments report on how they're supporting each other's goals. Shared metrics where departments succeed or fail together. Collaborative planning where departments commit to supporting each other's initiatives. Physical proximity where departments sit together instead of in separate buildings or floors. Third, reward cooperation and punish tribalism. When a department helps another department succeed, even at temporary cost to their own metrics, recognize and reward that. When a department refuses to cooperate or actively undermines others, address it immediately. Leaders must make teamwork non-negotiable. Fourth, lead by example at every level. If you're a department head, actively look for ways to support other departments. Offer help before being asked. Communicate proactively. Make other leaders' success your concern. Your team will follow your lead. If you model cooperation, they'll cooperate. If you model competition with other departments, they'll compete. Let me share a business example. A tech company had chronic conflict between sales and engineering. Sales complained engineering took too long to build features customers wanted. Engineering complained sales made technically impossible promises. The tension was destroying company culture and customer satisfaction. Neither side practiced cover and move. They were fighting each other instead of covering each other. The new CEO implemented cover and move explicitly. He required the VP of Sales and VP of Engineering to meet weekly, not to argue, but to coordinate. Sales would share customer feedback and feature requests. Engineering would explain technical constraints and timelines. Together, they'd prioritize what could realistically be delivered and when. More importantly, the CEO changed the incentive structure. Sales bonuses were partly based on engineering hitting their commitments, and engineering bonuses were partly based on sales hitting their targets. Suddenly, sales had a vested interest in not overpromising, because engineering failure meant their bonus suffered. Engineering had a vested interest in delivering quickly, because sales success meant their bonus improved. The result? Sales started setting more realistic customer expectations, which engineering could actually meet. Engineering started communicating proactively about delays or issues, so sales could manage customer expectations. The department stopped fighting and started coordinating. Company performance improved dramatically. That's cover and move in business, aligning incentives and forcing coordination so different elements support each other's success. But cover and move isn't just for departments. It applies to individuals on teams. When you're working on a project with colleagues, are you just focused on your piece, or are you actively helping others succeed? Are you communicating about your progress and challenges? Are you offering to help when others struggle? Are you subordinating your individual glory to team success? Elite teams practice cover and move instinctively. Team members support each other without being asked. When one person is overwhelmed, others step in. When one person has a win, everyone celebrates because they contributed to conditions for that win. This creates a high-trust, high-performance culture where the team achieves far more than the sum of individual efforts. As we close this chapter, assess your organization through the cover and move lens. Are different elements supporting each other or competing? Are you breaking down silos or reinforcing them? Are you helping colleagues succeed or just focused on your own work? Implement cover and move at every level. Make supporting each other's success non-negotiable. This single principle, applied consistently, transforms mediocre teams into exceptional ones. Now let's explore why simple plans succeed while complex plans fail. Understand Chapter 6. Simple. Complexity is the enemy in combat planning. Complexity kills. The more complex the plan, the more likely it fails. Why? Because combat is chaos. Communication breaks down. Conditions change. Equipment fails. People get confused. In this chaos, complex plans with multiple dependencies and intricate timing fall apart instantly. Simple plans, with clear objectives and straightforward execution, survive chaos and succeed. This truth extends far beyond combat. In business, in projects, in life, complexity is the enemy. Simple plans that everyone understands and can execute even when conditions are bad beat complex plans that require perfect conditions to work. Yet most leaders create overly complex plans because complexity feels sophisticated and thoroughness feels responsible. This is a deadly mistake. Let's explore why simplicity wins. First, Simple plans are more easily understood. When everyone on the team completely understands the plan, execution improves. There's no confusion about what to do or why. Contrast this with complex plans where team members understand the small piece but not the whole, or where the plan is so convoluted that even leaders struggle to explain it clearly. Second, simple plans are more easily communicated. In fast-moving situations, you need to brief new people quickly or adjust plans on the fly. Simple plans can be explained in minutes. Complex plans require lengthy explanations that waste precious time and still leave people confused. Third, simple plans are more resilient to change. Conditions will change. That's guaranteed. When plans are simple, adapting to changes is straightforward. When plans are complex with many interdependencies, one change creates a cascade of complications. Fourth, simple plans require less perfect coordination. Complex plans often require precise timing and coordination between many elements. If one element is late or fails, the whole plan collapses. Simple plans with fewer dependencies are more robust. One element can struggle without destroying the whole operation. In Ramadi, Jocko learned this lesson repeatedly. Early in the deployment, some leaders created elaborate operations with complex schemes of maneuver, multiple supporting elements, and precise timing requirements. These plans looked impressive on paper. They felt thorough and sophisticated. But when executed in the chaos of combat, they fell apart. Communication broke down. Timing went off. Elements got separated. The complexity that seemed like a strength became a fatal weakness. After several near disasters, Jocko mandated simplicity. Operations had to be simple enough that everyone involved could understand the entire plan and execute their part, even if communications failed completely. This forced discipline in planning. It required identifying the essential elements and ruthlessly cutting anything non-essential. The result? Operations became more successful because simplicity made them more executable. Here's the simplicity framework. When planning anything, follow these steps. Step 1. Define the mission's core objective clearly. What are we actually trying to accomplish? Boil it down to one clear sentence. Everything in the plan should directly support this objective. If something doesn't directly contribute, it's probably unnecessary complexity. Step 2. Identify the minimal elements required to achieve the objective. What are the fewest steps, people, resources, or actions needed? Start with absolute minimums. Resist the urge to add nice-to-have elements or elaborate details. Minimize. Don't maximize. Step 3. Ensure everyone understands not just their piece, but the entire plan. Brief the whole team on the complete plan, even parts they're not directly involved in. This shared understanding allows people to adapt intelligently if their piece changes. Quiz team members. Explain the plan to me. If they can't explain it simply, the plan is too complex. Step 4. Eliminate jargon and terminology. Complex plans often hide behind fancy words and acronyms. Speak plainly. If you can't explain the plan in simple language that anyone could understand, it's too complex. Step 5. Reduce dependencies and create buffers. Identify where the plan requires perfect coordination or timing. See if you can eliminate those dependencies. If you can't eliminate them, build in buffers so small delays don't cascade into failures. Step 6. Plan for the worst case. Simple plans should be executable even if half the things that could go wrong do go wrong. If your plan requires perfect conditions to work, it's not simple. It's fragile. Let me share a business example. A company planned a product launch with an incredibly complex marketing campaign. Coordinated social media posts across 8 platforms, timed email sequences to 12 customer segments, influencer partnerships with specific posting schedules, PR outreach to hundreds of publications, webinars requiring precise registration and technology coordination, in-person events in 5 cities on the same day. The plan was a 100-page document that required a dedicated project manager just to track all the interdependencies. Launch day arrived. Half the influencers posted late or not at all. The webinar technology crashed. 2 of the in-person events had venue issues. The email sequences went out with broken links to 3 segments. The coordinated social media posts got messed up because of time zone confusion. The complex plan fell apart under real-world friction. Contrast this with a different company's product launch. Their plan: 1 clear message, 3 channels, launch week flexibility. The message: we're solving X problem with Y solution. The channels: email to existing customers, posts on their 2 main social platforms, and personal outreach from the sales team. The flexibility: instead of a precise launch day with minute-by-minute timing, they had a launch week where different elements could happen when ready. This simple plan was resilient. When one element hit delays, it didn't derail others. When technology issues happened, they could pivot quickly because the plan wasn't dependent on complex coordination. The launch succeeded because simplicity made it executable even when things went wrong. Here's how to simplify existing complex plans. First, question everything. For each element of the plan, ask: is this essential to the core objective? If the answer isn't a clear yes, cut it. Be ruthless. Most complex plans are bloated with nice-to-have additions that complicate without adding real value. Second, combine elements. Instead of 10 separate actions, can you accomplish the same goal with 3? Look for opportunities to consolidate. Third, remove dependencies. Where the plan requires perfect coordination, ask: can we execute these elements independently instead? Sequential steps are simpler than simultaneous coordinated steps. Fourth, shorten the plan document. If you can't explain the plan in 2 pages or a 10-minute briefing, it's too complex. Force yourself to distill it to essentials. The discipline of brevity creates clarity. Fifth, test understanding. Brief the plan to someone unfamiliar with it. Can they explain it back to you accurately after 1 briefing? If not, simplify further. As we close this chapter, commit to simplicity in all your planning. Resist the seduction of complex, sophisticated-seeming plans. Instead, develop the discipline to identify essential elements and ruthlessly cut everything else. Remember, the plan that works when everything goes wrong is better than the plan that works only when everything goes right. Simple plans work. Complex plans fail. Now let's explore how to make decisions and execute when you're overwhelmed. Prioritize and execute. Chapter 7. Prioritize and execute under pressure in combat. When chaos erupts, multiple problems demand attention simultaneously. Casualties need medical attention. Enemy contact requires return fire. Communication is breaking down. Your position is being flanked. Ammunition is running low. Equipment has failed. Everything is urgent. Everything is critical. In this moment, the natural human response is panic and paralysis. You try to solve all problems at once and solve none effectively. Elite combat leaders respond differently. They prioritize and execute. Identify the problem that will kill you first. Solve that problem. Then move to the next highest priority problem. Solve that. Repeat. This disciplined approach seems slower in theory but is faster in practice because you're actually solving problems instead of frantically reacting to all of them poorly. This principle applies to any high-pressure situation. In business, crises create the same dynamic. Multiple problems erupt simultaneously. The server is down. A major client is threatening to leave. The product has a critical bug. Cash flow is dangerously low. A key employee just quit. Your brain screams, "Fix everything now." But you can't. Trying to fix everything simultaneously means fixing nothing effectively. The prioritize and execute framework has specific steps. Step 1. When overwhelmed by problems, force yourself to stop and think. Don't react immediately. Take 30 seconds to 1 minute to assess. This pause feels impossible when everything is urgent, but it's essential. Calm yourself enough to think clearly. Step 2. Identify the highest priority problem. Ask, what will cause irreversible damage or failure if not addressed immediately? Not what's most annoying or what's getting the most attention. What's actually most critical? In combat, this is usually the threat that will kill you. In business, it's usually the problem that will kill the company or destroy the most value. Step 3. Communicate your priority to the team clearly. Here's what we're solving first. Everything else waits. This prevents team members from scattering to different problems. Everyone focuses on the highest priority. Step 4. Allocate resources to solve that priority problem. Assign people time and attention to it. Don't leave enough resources for other problems yet. Concentrate force on priority 1. Step 5. Solve the priority problem completely before moving to the next. Don't partially solve it, then jump to another problem. Finish it. Get it to a stable state where it's no longer the critical threat. Step 6. Reassess and repeat. Once priority 1 is handled, what's now the highest priority? Focus on that. Keep cycling through this process until all problems are solved or stabilized. In Ramadi, Jocko used prioritize and execute during a firefight that went wrong. His SEAL element was pinned down by heavy enemy fire from multiple positions. Simultaneously, they took a casualty who needed medical attention. Their Iraqi soldier partners were panicking and not returning effective fire. Radio communication with support elements was breaking down, and they were running low on ammunition. Jocko forced himself to stop and think despite bullets impacting around him. He prioritized. First, suppress the enemy fire from the position most likely to hit them. Without that, they'd take more casualties. He directed his SEALs to concentrate fire on that one enemy position. Once that position was suppressed, priority 2. Get the casualty to cover and administer medical aid. Once the casualty was stabilized, priority 3. Restore communication with support elements to get reinforcements. Once comms were restored, priority 4. Coordinate with the Iraqi soldiers to establish effective firing positions. By focusing on one problem at a time instead of trying to solve all simultaneously, Jocko's team worked through the crisis methodically. What seemed like overwhelming chaos became manageable through prioritization. The alternative, panicking and trying to solve everything at once, would have likely resulted in more casualties and mission failure. Here's how to implement prioritize and execute in business. When crisis hits, convene the leadership team immediately. Not to react, but to prioritize. Spend the first 10 minutes just identifying all the problems. Don't solve anything yet. List everything that's on fire. Then force yourselves to rank them by criticality. What will cause irreversible damage first? That's priority 1. Then attack priority 1 with full resources. Don't leave significant resources for other problems yet. You're not ignoring them, you're sequencing. Once priority 1 is stabilized, move to priority 2 with the same full focus. This serial approach to problem-solving beats parallel attempts to solve everything simultaneously. Let me share a business example. A SaaS company experienced cascading failures. Their primary cloud provider had an outage, taking down their service for thousands of customers. Simultaneously, a major security vulnerability was discovered that needed immediate patching, and a critical employee in charge of infrastructure sent an angry resignation email and stopped responding. The CEO's initial instinct was panic. How do we solve all this at once? Instead, he implemented prioritize and execute. He forced himself and his leadership team to stop and think. They prioritized. First, restore service for customers by switching to backup infrastructure. That's what would kill the company if it stayed down. Second, address the security vulnerability before it's exploited. Third, deal with the employee situation. They put every available engineer on switching to backup infrastructure. Not some engineers on backup, some on security, and some on employee issues. All engineers on priority 1. Within 2 hours, service was restored. Then they moved all available resources to fixing the security vulnerability. Within 4 hours, it was patched. Only then did they address the employee situation, which turned out to be resolvable through honest conversation once the immediate crises were handled. The CEO realized afterward, if they tried to solve all three simultaneously, spreading their limited engineering resources across all problems, service would have stayed down longer, the security vulnerability might have been exploited, and the employee situation wouldn't have been handled better anyway. Prioritize and execute allowed them to actually solve the problems instead of just reacting to all of them poorly. Here's the key insight. Prioritizing feels like you're ignoring problems. You're not. You're sequencing them. You're recognizing that your resources and attention are finite. Trying to solve 5 problems simultaneously with 20% focus on each is less effective than solving them serially with 100% focus on each in turn. Now let's address the hard part. Deciding what's actually highest priority. This requires clear thinking under pressure, which is difficult. Here's a framework. Ask 3 questions about each problem. What's the deadline? What's the consequence of failure? What's required to solve it? Problems with immediate deadlines, catastrophic consequences, and clear solutions should generally be priority. Problems with flexible deadlines, manageable consequences, or unclear solutions should generally be deprioritized. Sometimes you'll prioritize something that seems less urgent because solving it prevents multiple other problems. That's fine. The key is having a conscious prioritization process instead of just reacting to whoever is yelling loudest. Also recognize that priorities can shift. After you solve priority 1, what was priority 3 might become the new priority 1 based on changed conditions. Reassess constantly. Prioritize and execute is a loop, not a single decision. As we close this chapter, practice prioritize and execute before crisis hits. When you feel overwhelmed by your to-do list, stop. Identify the one task that matters most today. Do that first. Complete it before moving to the next. This daily practice builds the mental discipline needed when real crisis hits. In chaos, the ability to prioritize and execute calmly while others panic is a superpower. Develop it deliberately. Now let's bring everything together in the conclusion. Conclusion. Discipline equals freedom. Extreme ownership for life. We've covered the complete framework of extreme ownership forged in the Battle of Ramadi and proven in thousands of businesses worldwide. From the fundamental principle that as a leader, you are responsible for everything your team does or fails to do, to understanding that there are no bad teams, only bad leaders who fail to set standards, build belief, and hold accountability, from the critical importance of making your team believe in the mission by understanding it deeply enough yourself to convey that belief, to checking your ego constantly because confidence is essential but ego destroys leadership. From cover and move, the teamwork principle that requires every element to support each other instead of competing, to keeping plans simple because complexity is the enemy and simple plans survive the chaos that complex plans cannot, to prioritize and execute, the framework for staying calm under pressure and solving multiple problems sequentially instead of simultaneously. These aren't abstract principles. They're battlefield-tested truths that separate elite leaders from everyone else. But the most important lesson from Jocko and Leif's work transcends specific tactics. It's the overarching philosophy that discipline equals freedom. This seems paradoxical. How can discipline create freedom? Isn't discipline the opposite of freedom? The answer is no. Discipline creates freedom. Lack of discipline creates slavery to chaos, circumstances, and mediocrity. Here's how discipline equals freedom. When you have the discipline to wake up early, train your body, and develop your skills, you have the freedom of health, energy, and capability. When you lack that discipline, you're enslaved to poor health, low energy, and limited capabilities. When you have the discipline to plan, prepare, and execute systematically, you have the freedom to accomplish your mission even when conditions are bad. When you lack that discipline, you're enslaved to circumstances, succeeding only when everything goes right. When you have the discipline to take extreme ownership, you have the freedom to control outcomes. When you lack that discipline and blame others, you're enslaved to other people's choices and actions. When you have the discipline to check your ego, you have the freedom to learn, improve, and build great teams. When you lack that discipline, you're enslaved to your ego's need for validation and protection. This is the deepest truth of extreme ownership. Taking total responsibility for everything in your world is the only way to have real freedom. Victim mentality feels easier because it absolves you of responsibility. But it imprisons you. You're powerless to change things because they're someone else's fault. Extreme ownership is harder because it demands you take responsibility even for things that aren't directly your fault. But it liberates you because when you own it, you can change it. In combat, this isn't philosophy. It's survival. SEAL leaders who take extreme ownership keep their teams alive and accomplish the mission. Leaders who make excuses get people killed. In business, the stakes aren't life and death, but the principle is the same. Leaders who take extreme ownership build successful organizations. Leaders who make excuses build cultures of mediocrity and blame. Let me give you a clear 90-day implementation plan for extreme ownership. Days 1 to 30. Focus on the fundamental principle. Every time something goes wrong in your domain, take ownership publicly and completely. Don't mention others' contributions to the failure. Just own it. Then privately analyze and improve. This single practice will transform how your team views you and themselves. Days 31 to 60. Implement cover and move. Identify silos in your organization. Break them down. Force coordination between elements. Make supporting each other's success non-negotiable. Reward cooperation. Address tribalism immediately. Watch performance improve as internal competition gives way to internal cooperation. Days 61 to 90. Simplify everything. Look at your current plans, processes, and communications. Ruthlessly eliminate complexity. If you can't explain something simply, it's too complex. Make simplicity your standard. You'll discover that simple plans execute better than complex plans, even though complex plans feel more sophisticated. After 90 days, you'll have embedded extreme ownership into your leadership. Your team will respect you more. Results will improve. But more importantly, you'll have developed the discipline that creates freedom. You'll own your outcomes instead of being victim to circumstances. That ownership is liberating. Now imagine where you'll be 1 year from now if you lead with extreme ownership consistently. Your team performs at levels you didn't think possible because there are no bad teams, only bad leaders, and you've become a better leader. Your organization functions smoothly because different elements support each other through cover and move instead of competing. Your plans execute successfully because you've simplified them to be resilient against chaos. You handle crisis calmly because you prioritize and execute instead of panicking. You continuously improve because you check your ego and accept feedback. You inspire fierce loyalty because you take responsibility and give credit generously. This is what extreme ownership creates. Exceptional results through exceptional leadership. 5 years from now, you've built something remarkable. Not because you're the smartest or most talented, but because you took extreme ownership. You built a culture where everyone takes responsibility. You developed leaders who lead like you lead. You created an organization that executes missions other organizations can't because your people are disciplined, coordinated, and accountable. Here's what makes extreme ownership different from other leadership philosophies. It's not about you. It's about the mission and the team. It's not about being popular or liked. It's about being effective. It's not about avoiding mistakes. It's about owning them completely when they happen. It's not comfortable or easy. It's hard and uncomfortable. But it works. The SEAL teams don't have the luxury of theoretical leadership that sounds good but doesn't work. When bullets are flying and lives are at stake, what works survives. What doesn't gets people killed. Extreme ownership works. It kept Task Unit Bruiser alive through the deadliest urban combat in Iraq. It's transformed thousands of businesses from mediocre to excellent. And it will transform your leadership if you implement it. Let me address the final doubt you might have. What if my team doesn't respond to extreme ownership? What if I take ownership and they still underperform? First, give it time. Teams that have been led poorly for years won't transform overnight. Consistent extreme ownership over months creates cultural change. Second, ensure you're implementing all the principles, not just one. Extreme ownership without making them believe won't work. Belief without checking your ego won't work. The framework works as a complete system. Third, if after consistent extreme ownership your team still underperforms, that's information. Your ownership might require making hard personnel decisions. Maybe you need different people. Maybe you need to change your approach. But the answer is still extreme ownership. You own the team's composition. You own the approach. You own the outcome. I want to leave you with one final truth. Extreme ownership is a choice you make every single day. You don't take extreme ownership once and you're done. You take it in every moment, every decision, every interaction. When something goes wrong, your choice. Blame or own. When someone offers feedback, your choice. Defend or learn. When your team struggles, your choice. Criticize or support. These daily choices accumulate into leadership character. Choose ownership over blame. Choose learning over defending. Choose supporting over criticizing. Choose mission over ego. Choose discipline over comfort. Make these choices consistently, and you become an extreme ownership leader. Make the opposite choices, and you become another excuse-making manager who wonders why your team underperforms. Stop making excuses. Stop blaming others. Stop waiting for perfect conditions. Take extreme ownership of everything in your world. Lead your team to believe in the mission. Check your ego constantly. Implement cover and move so every element supports the others. Keep plans simple so they survive chaos. Prioritize and execute when overwhelmed. Do these things, and you'll become the leader your team deserves and your mission requires. Discipline equals freedom. Take extreme ownership. Lead from the front. Make no excuses. Your team is watching. Your mission is waiting. Your leadership defines the outcome. Own it completely. Execute it excellently. Win.